The night began after Jia had been drinking heavily with Juming. She arrived at his house to drop him off, and he was completely drunk. However, like an angry wife, Ha-jung was upset and told Jia it would be better to just leave him on the street. Still, he thanked her for bringing Juming home. Ha-jung then told Jia that she should rest and hinted that he'd like to invite her to dinner sometime. Jia took this moment to ask if it was true that he and Juming weren't a couple. Ha-jun responded, saying that if they were a couple, he wouldn't be with her now, so they were just friends. This relieved Jia a little. On the other hand, Ha-jun put Juming in his room, and Juming muttered, "Ha-jun, stop pitying me, you idiot." The next morning, Jia was heading to work, and there was Juming waiting for her. He pretended not to remember anything, but Jia knew he had a photographic memory. He even told her he didn't recall anything from the previous night, which complicated things, especially since Jia had comforted him, and now he didn't even remember it. Jia was annoyed, but as they left the elevator, Juming slyly said, "Yesterday was better than France." Jia now understood he remembered everything. Later that day, Jia was organizing everything for the company event when she had to listen to Kiva X, the office gossip and troublemaker, go on and on. He was already creating nicknames for the new boss, calling him Taipan, one of the most venomous snakes, and with no antidote for its bite. Not bad. Kiva kept talking until the boss himself approached and overheard the rest. To avoid getting fired, Kiva X was tasked with inflating balloons. The boss then asked Jia if he should forgive Kiva, and she said yes, so the boss told Kiva X that if he still had his job, it was thanks to Jia. That evening, the event began, and everything went smoothly. But Jia, with her beauty, caught the attention of some charming men, though she hated flirtatious types and ignored them. At one point, Editor Choi sent Jia to get some surveys from her car. As Jia returned, those guys who had tried flirting with her earlier found her again. They thought they'd get another chance to charm her, but as soon as she got in the elevator, these two idiots stopped it. Minutes passed, and the boss noticed that Editor Choi was leaving. He asked her what was going on, and she explained that she had sent Jia to retrieve the surveys. But it had already taken too long, which scared him. Meanwhile, these two idiots were abducting Jia. Fortunately, the boss arrived just in time, and before anything bad could happen, he quickly knocked one of them down. However, he got distracted when he saw how Jia was, and the other guy took the opportunity to get up and strike him. Jia saw this, but soon lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was in the hospital. Jumi was injured but reassured her that the two men were much worse off. For now, she needed to rest, and then they could press charges against those two. A few days later, Joming asked Jia to come with him to meet H. Bo, who gladly accepted the case. He was one of the best lawyers, and Jia didn't have enough money to pay him, but Jabon would charge her a small fee of $30. He was even willing to help her for free, but since she wasn't happy with that, he only charged a small amount. Jia's gestures made Jabon think of someone in his family, his sister, Jian. The following night, Juming visited Jia. He brought her some fried chicken, which he always bought for Seoul, but he hoped to see Jia tomorrow at work. When he arrived, Jia invited him in to eat together. He agreed, but when they sat down, he let her eat alone, and it felt awkward, like being watched while you eat just isn't comfortable. As they talked, Jia thanked him for helping her hire lawyer Shin, who seemed to be very close to Juming. She then asked about something Shin had told her, that she resembled the lawyer's sister, Jian. At the mention of the name, Juming was stunned. He quickly said goodbye and left. He went to the park, where he thought about the woman he once loved, Jian. She had always been so sweet, and he loved being near her. But for Jian, Juming was just her little brother. She lived her life with optimism and excitement, making him feel so many beautiful things. Yet he never had the courage to confess his feelings, especially because Haijun's family had raised him as one of their own. He couldn't give in to his desires, afraid that if things went wrong with Jian, he might lose the only people who had been like family to him. At that moment, Haijun called him, worried because Jia had come asking about him. Juming had left his apartment in a hurry, and Jia had told him that she had mentioned Jian. He probably felt affected hearing about her. Then Juming asked if Jia resembled Jian for him too. The silence was his answer. Yes. In the beginning, Juming didn't understand why he had been so drawn to her in Paris. But now he understood. That's why he always tried to protect her. That's why he felt butterflies in his stomach when he saw her. He felt guilty for what he had done to Jian. In just a few minutes, Jian, who had been looking for him desperately, arrived, and that truly drove him crazy. 3 years ago, in the winter, Jimin passed away in an accident, just like Juming's parents. He regretted so much not confessing his feelings to her because maybe she would have loved him as much as he loved her. But that's how his intense love ended. When he saw Jian arrive and noticed the cold, they both returned to the building. However, as they were in the elevator, Juming clarified that he wasn't crying. Jian then asked for the lawyer Jaibon's bank details, as she hated owing anyone anything. Juming thought to himself, "She really does resemble Jimin." When they reached the floor, he took off his jacket and handed it back to her before she left for home. Meanwhile, Sol and Haijun were welcoming Juming. Sol told her dad that her other dad ate all the chicken and didn't leave any for her. After putting Sol to bed, Haijun and Juming sat down to talk in the kitchen. It became clear that Juming seemed like a nagging husband to Haijun. But then, Juming began to open up. He wanted to know if it was true that Jian resembled Juming. This was something Haijun agreed with, as Jian was very similar to his sister. He thought that Juming had also realized this and had opened up to Jian for that reason. But the truth was, Jimin had never noticed this connection. For Haijun there was no problem, but for Jimin there was. Unconsciously he saw Jimin in Jian, and he had fallen for her, which only caused him more pain. He had suffered a lot because of the cockroach, and now he was about to hurt Jian too. He felt like the worst person in the world, but Haijun couldn't understand what the problem was. Then Juming asked Haijun what it felt like to have a family. Haijun thought that was ridiculous. He already had a family. But for Juming, Haijun's family was his family too, and it seemed like Haijun didn't see it that way. The next day, Jian received a call from her mum, who was thinking of sending food with Juming, the one person Jian didn't want to see. After hanging up, Jian realized someone was waiting for her. Juming. Once in the elevator, he told her he had been waiting for 30 minutes and wanted to ask if he could watch her for a few days. After that, he promised he'd explain why. 3 months ago, he had a stable job in France, but he chose to take a job as a runway model just because he missed his home country. Plus, Haijun wanted help raising Sol. That day, he had decided to stroll around Paris and enjoy the time he had left there. It was then that he saw her. She passed by him, and by accident, stepped on his foot. But he didn't realize it. Then he found her again in another place. Without thinking, he started watching her until he noticed someone trying to steal her wallet. He intervened. Back in the present, the week for the magazine's Runway release was approaching. It meant hard work, even with extra hours. Though Jian kept thinking about what Juming had asked her, she didn't understand why, out of nowhere, he decided to watch her. He was always near her, wherever she went. One day, Jian and her co-workers were having coffee in the company cafeteria. Out of the blue, they started talking about the boss and what he might be like in a romantic relationship. They thought he was surely imposing, but just then the boss arrived. He overheard everything and approached them. Since Director Choi was the one talking, the boss clarified that she wasn't his type, but he would give Jian a chance, even though Jian wasn't interested. After that, he walked away, thinking, I have to admit, she even rejected me in the same way. Things were starting to get out of control, and he even started observing her responses. Meanwhile, Jaibon finally met with his wife. The two were so busy with their work that they hardly saw each other or spent time together. There was no chemistry between them anymore, so Jaibon wanted things to change. That afternoon, out of nowhere, he proposed having a baby, which shocked her. They had been married for 5 years, and for her it wasn't the right time. When she heard this, Jaibon got angry. She always prioritized her work, even working extra hours, and it seemed like she had stopped being affectionate, not even calling him by his name. He asked, Baba, are you seeing someone else? When she reacted negatively, she simply handed him what she had brought. After that, she left, and Jaibon didn't know what to do. It had been a year since he discovered that she was seeing another man, a researcher who worked with her, but he hadn't confronted her yet, afraid she would ask for a divorce. On the other hand, Jia was leaving work, and it was already very late when she ran into Joming. He asked, "Why are you leaving? You've only been sleeping for 3 hours, and now you have to go back?" But she replied that she'd rather rest in her bed, even if it was just for half an hour, which excited Joming. He told her, "You're not like her, so at least today, from what I observed, you're not like the one I thought you were." After that, he left, leaving her completely confused. The following days, after a long workday, Jian called his mother to take care of his little soul for the night. He had received a message from his ex, Sonyeon, telling him that she was getting married. Some time ago, he had broken up with Sonyeon because he needed to take care of Sol and didn't want to burden her with that responsibility, even though she was eager to care for Sol. Supposedly, he had distanced himself because Sonyeon's parents weren't happy with the situation. In short, he sent her away to fulfill her parents' wishes and marry someone they chose. Now, the woman who used to be his love was getting married. So, in this moment of confusion, he decided to clear his mind by watching a movie at the cinema. And right there he ran into Jia, who was also planning to watch a movie, a horror one. She invited him to watch it with her. She noticed and thought to herself how handsome her neighbors were. Maybe she had done something right to deserve such company. They continued watching the movie, and Jia acted very brave. Afterward, as they were leaving, he offered to drive her home, but she preferred to walk since she had gained a few pounds from eating so much. He jokingly said he was a liposuction specialist and could offer her a treatment, to which she laughed and replied that she didn't need it because she was still very slim. They ended up going in the same car, and Jia thought to herself how different he was from Joming. Both arrived at the building, and Joming, who had just arrived, saw them together. He stayed watching and realized that he wasn't the only one interested in Jia. The next day, Jia had to give something to the boss, who, it seemed, was in a bad mood. As Joming had predicted, he didn't keep his personal life separate and asked Jia how the movie with Haijun had been. He even concluded that Jia seemed to like sweet guys. But at least, he thought, she should give him some time too. Days passed, and one night, unexpectedly, the cockroach discovered where Jia lived and showed up at her place, drunk. Jia went outside because he was causing a huge scene. She wanted him to leave, but he insisted on apologizing until she finally hit him. He was so drunk he was even about to vomit, and just then, Jia's hero appeared. Joming, starting by taking out the trash. But the more he hurt him, the worse it got. Eventually he vomited, and unfortunately it was all over Joming. Poor guy. Meanwhile, that same night, Jaibon arrived home feeling lost, not knowing what to do with his life. He started drinking heavily, and when his wife arrived, he felt a surge of anger. To make matters worse, he noticed a different scent on her. It seemed like the perfume of someone else had rubbed off on her. The next day, like the foolish cockroach he was, he ended up sleeping on the balcony, freezing. He thought he was in Jia's house, but he wasn't. He was at the house of Jia's future husband. Envy consumed him as he watched the beautiful people around him. That's when things started to spiral out of control. Jun called his brother and asked if they could arrest someone who had broken into his house. Of course, this idiot hadn't entered voluntarily. But when he heard that he could face 2 years in prison for it, he panicked and ran off, thinking he wouldn't pursue Jia anymore. When he saw her, he apologized and left, as though his soul was being dragged away. Just then, Joming appeared, visibly upset, unable to understand how someone like Jaibon could have spent 5 years with that fool and not given him a chance. Meanwhile, Jinyon Yang was meeting with her husband. Jaibon wanted to know when she had been seeing someone else. She told him that she had known for about a year, or maybe even longer. He didn't know that she had been seeing him for 3 years. He asked when it had all started, and she explained that it was on May 6, 3 years ago, when she lost their child. She told him she was trying to be a good wife now since her job was stable, but before, she didn't have time for her. She had suffered after losing the pregnancy, and even though he had heard her crying in the bathroom, he never bothered to ask her what was wrong. She asked him why he had never shared anything with her. The truth was, when she tried to talk to him, he would tell her he didn't have time for anything. Once, she asked for just 5 minutes, but he told her to let him rest and give him space when he came home. It felt like he was tired of her. Maybe she had some fault in all of this, but she wasn't the only one. Later, she left. That evening, Jian met up with the person she had been seeing. She told him that Jaebon had found out about them, but he couldn't understand their situation. For her, it was just an affair. They had never been intimate, but the fact that she had a connection with another man was enough to call it cheating. She went out drinking with him, had dinner, and even texted him when she needed someone. To Jian, her marriage was over. She and Jaebon had grown distant, but she didn't know when it had all fallen apart. That night, Jia came home to find that her husband had already packed and was ready to leave. He handed her the divorce papers and said they should end it peacefully, unless she wanted him to report her for having an affair. She immediately signed the papers and he left. She wanted to talk to him, but to him the worst betrayal was losing their child and having the father not even find out. It seemed like this other man had known first. He questioned whether he had ever even considered him a husband, or at least a human being. Jaebon was hurt, grabbing her and asking why. Why did she do this? Had she waited to tell him everything just to make him suffer? If that was her intention, then so be it. She had ended things with him that day. The next few days passed and the weekend arrived. That morning, Juming arrived at Jia's place with little Sol to visit. He wanted them to come along to the park because he always ended up fighting with other parents, so Jia went as his supervisor. She really enjoyed spending time with Sol, while Juming just kept staring at his phone. Then, Jia's phone rang, and she asked Juming to look after Sol for a moment. As soon as she left, the drama started. A kid started fighting with Sol and pushed her. Juming saw the situation and punched the kid. The boy's mother showed up furious, and Juming didn't have the tact to handle the situation properly. They started arguing, but Jia arrived just in time to stop Juming and took over, speaking to the woman. She told her that her son had pushed Sol, and, as the mother, she should apologize. If she did, then Jia and Juming would apologize as well. After the confrontation, they went home. Sol had fallen asleep, and Jia wondered if she had made a mistake. But Juming held her hand and suggested that the next day he would take her to the cinema. The next night, they went to the movies. Jia wasn't sure what to order for snacks during the movie, which seemed to offend Juming. Apparently with Haejun it had been different. When she was with him, she knew exactly what to ask for and understood him better. This made Juming wonder why she didn't want to eat with him. But after that, they continued watching the movie, and at one point Juming leaned in, seeming as though he was about to kiss her. But no, he just wanted her to focus on the movie. However, he quickly added that once the movie was over, she could kiss him as much as she wanted. After the movie, they headed to his car, and the desire for a kiss took over. They kissed passionately, giving in to their feelings. The following night, Jaebon invited Haejun and Juming to drink with him. They knew Jaebon wasn't doing well, and as soon as they saw him, they realized something was wrong. They asked if he had fought with his wife, and they hit the nail on the head. They started drinking heavily, and out of nowhere, Jaebon told them that they should never fall in love or get married because it's a disaster. But he never told them exactly what had happened. He tried to take a breather but saw a young man scratching his car. In his anger, Jaebon threatened to report him or make him pay for the damage or face jail time for 3 years. The young man started crying, saying that Jaebon had hit him. Jaebon really did want to hit him to make him feel the pain. But luckily, they didn't let him do anything he might regret later. What seemed like something simple to fix ended up turning into a huge scandal, but fortunately he was stopped before making a bigger mistake. After that, they wanted answers. What exactly was going on? Jaebon confessed that he was going to divorce his wife. The days passed, and on the runway, Ja had to deal with a very arrogant model. Kika knew exactly how to inflate this guy's ego, but Ja hated having to compliment him for being just a regular guy. The photos began, and everything seemed to be going fine until it was time to exchange watches. This model seemed very interested in the prices. Jia knew he was going to ask for a free one and accidentally blurted out that, unfortunately, all watches had to be returned to the sponsor. This made him furious, wondering when he had ever asked for a watch. After that, the guy became increasingly arrogant, acting as if he were the best. He started making Jia's life miserable by demanding that she bring him coffee. Kimbex wanted to go buy it, but this little man wanted the coffee served by a woman because apparently it tasted better that way. Thus began the torment. No coffee was ever good enough. Jia brought one after another, but then the fool managed to spill one all over the carpet. The whole place had been rented for the photo shoot, and replacing the carpet would be expensive. Jia panicked as she tried to clean it up, and the model was thrilled, telling everyone that he never wanted to work with the Runway again. Soon, the boss arrived. Seeing Jia on her knees, he lost his patience. He heard that the model didn't want to work with them anymore and thought about suing him for breaching the contract and for the financial damage. He would also have to repay the ridiculous amount they paid him for his photos. Additionally, he would have to pay for the damages to the suite, including the humiliation caused to the workers. With that, Jiuming ended the photo shoot. But then, the agent of the celebrity model talked to Jiuming. The photo shoot ended without any more issues, and everyone started leaving, but Jia stayed alone with him. He told her that he was doing all of this for her because if it had happened with anyone else, he wouldn't have cared. He also told her that he had already finished his period of observing her, but before leaving he asked, "Can I have feelings for you?"